Yes, low voltage and medium voltage panel boards need separation via a partition according to National Electrical Code Section 110.34. This partition serves to prevent inadvertent contact with live parts of the higher voltage system. Components inside a medium voltage panel board may indeed be considered exposed live parts if unqualified personnel can access them. Medium voltage systems generally operate above 1000 volts, making them hazardous. A panel board itself is not automatically considered adequate protection for live parts. It must meet specific requirements outlined in National Electrical Code Sections 110.26 and 110.34. These requirements include that the panel board is designed to prevent inadvertent contact with live parts. The panel board must be labeled with a warning indicating the presence of hazardous voltage. Access to the panel board must be restricted to qualified personnel trained in the safe operation and maintenance of the system. To elaborate further, let's delve into the specifics of these National Electrical Code sections. National Electrical Code Section 110.34 addresses workspaces and guarding of live parts operating at 600 volts, nominal or less. It mandates that sufficient access and working space be provided and maintained around all electrical equipment to permit ready and safe operation and maintenance of such equipment. This space must be kept clear and unobstructed. In the context of separating low and medium voltage panel boards, this section emphasizes the need to prevent unqualified personnel from accidentally coming into contact with energized parts. The separation via partition is a physical barrier that helps achieve this goal. National Electrical Code Section 110.26 focuses on the spaces dedicated to electrical equipment. It outlines requirements for working space about electrical equipment operating at 600 volts, nominal, or less to ground. This section details the necessary clearances for working space in front of electrical equipment, the width and depth of the working space, and the need for adequate illumination. It also addresses the presence of foreign equipment in these dedicated spaces. The requirements in National Electrical Code Section 110.26 are crucial for ensuring that qualified personnel can safely access and work on electrical equipment, including panel boards. When considering the separation of low and medium voltage panel boards, the working space requirements around the medium voltage panel board are particularly important. These requirements help ensure that personnel have sufficient room to safely operate and maintain the equipment without accidentally coming into contact with the low voltage panel board. Now let's explore the concept of exposed live parts in medium voltage panel boards. Exposed live parts are any energized components that are not adequately guarded, insulated, or isolated to prevent accidental contact. In medium voltage systems, where voltages exceed 1000 volts, the potential for electrical shock and arc flash is significantly higher than in low voltage systems. Therefore, it is imperative that all live parts are properly protected. Medium voltage panel boards typically employ various measures to prevent access to live parts, such as enclosures, barriers, and interlocks. However, if these measures are compromised or if the panel board is not properly maintained, live parts may become exposed. For example, if a panel board door is left open or if a barrier is removed, unqualified personnel could potentially come into contact with energized components. It's important to note that even qualified personnel must exercise extreme caution when working on medium voltage panel boards. They must use appropriate personal protective equipment, such as insulated gloves and clothing, and follow safe work practices to minimize the risk of electrical shock and arc flash. Finally, let's consider whether a panel board is considered adequate protection for live parts. As previously mentioned, a panel board is not automatically considered adequate protection. It must meet specific requirements outlined in the National Electrical Code. These requirements ensure that the panel board is designed and installed in a manner that minimizes the risk of accidental contact with live parts. One key requirement is that the panel board must be designed to prevent inadvertent contact with live parts. This typically involves the use of enclosures, barriers, and interlocks. The enclosure must be sufficiently robust to withstand the environmental conditions in which the panelboard is installed, such as temperature, humidity, and corrosion. Barriers must be strategically placed to prevent access to energized components. Interlocks must be designed to automatically de-energize the panelboard when a door or cover is opened. Another important requirement is that the panelboard must be labeled with a warning indicating the presence of hazardous voltage. This warning serves as a visual reminder to personnel that the panelboard contains energized components and that caution must be exercised. The warning label must be clearly visible and legible, and it must comply with the requirements of the National Electrical Code. In addition to these design and labeling requirements, the National Electrical Code also requires that access to the panelboard be restricted to qualified personnel who are trained in the safe operation and maintenance of the system. This helps ensure that only individuals who have the necessary knowledge and skills are allowed to work on the panelboard. Qualified personnel must be familiar with the hazards associated with medium voltage systems, and they must be trained in the use of appropriate personal protective equipment and safe work practices. They must also be able to identify and correct any potential hazards that may be present in a panelboard. Furthermore, regular inspections and maintenance of the panelboard are essential to ensure that it continues to provide adequate protection for live parts. These inspections should include a visual examination of the panelboard to identify any signs of damage, corrosion, or loose connections. Any deficiencies that are identified must be corrected promptly to prevent the risk of electrical shock and arc flash. In summary, the separation of low and medium voltage panelboards, the protection of exposed live parts, and the adequacy of panelboards as protection are all critical aspects of electrical safety. Adhering to the requirements of the National Electrical Code and implementing appropriate safety measures are essential for protecting personnel from the hazards associated with electrical systems. To further clarify some points, one should consider the specific implications of these regulations for electrical room design. Firstly, the physical separation of low and medium voltage panelboards is not merely a suggestion, it's a code-mandated requirement under National Electrical Code Section 110.34. The intent is clear: to mitigate the risk of accidental contact between individuals and high-voltage components. This separation typically involves constructing a robust partition, often made of fire-resistant materials, that effectively isolates the medium voltage panelboard from the low-voltage one. This partition must extend the full height and width of the electrical room, providing a complete barrier. Secondly, regarding exposed live parts within medium voltage panelboards, the determination of whether components are considered exposed hinges on accessibility. Even if the panelboard is enclosed, if unqualified personnel can readily access internal components without specialized tools or knowledge, those components are deemed exposed live parts. This necessitates additional layers of protection, such as interlocks on panel doors that automatically de-energize the equipment when opened, or the use of insulated barriers to prevent accidental contact. Thirdly, a panelboard's protective capability isn't inherent. It's contingent upon adherence to National Electrical Code Sections 110.26 and 110.34, along with proper design and maintenance. The panelboard must be designed to prevent inadvertent contact, which implies robust construction, secure enclosures, and the aforementioned interlocks. Proper labeling is also paramount, clearly indicating the presence of hazardous voltage. Moreover, access should be strictly controlled, limited only to qualified personnel who possess the training and expertise to safely work with medium voltage equipment. It's also critical to emphasize that the National Electrical Code provides minimum safety standards. Depending on the specific application and risk assessment, additional safety measures may be warranted. For example, in environments with high levels of foot traffic or where unqualified personnel are more likely to be present, enhanced guarding and warning systems may be necessary. It's also important to consider the potential for arc flash events. Arc flash is a dangerous phenomenon that can occur when a short circuit creates a high-energy electrical explosion. Medium voltage systems are particularly susceptible to arc flash, and the consequences can be severe, including serious burns, injuries, and even fatalities. Therefore, arc flash hazard assessment should be conducted to determine the potential risks and to implement appropriate mitigation measures, such as the use of arc-resistant switchgear and personal protective equipment. In addition to the National Electrical Code, other standards and regulations may also apply to the separation and protection of panel boards. For example, the National Fire Protection Association provides guidance on electrical safety in the workplace. Occupational Safety and Health Administration also has regulations related to electrical safety. It's essential to be familiar with all applicable standards and regulations and to ensure that electrical systems are designed, installed, and maintained in accordance with these requirements. Furthermore, consider the implications for emergency situations. In the event of a fire or other emergency, it's crucial that personnel can safely access and energize electrical equipment. The location of panel boards and the means of disconnecting power should be clearly marked and readily accessible. Emergency procedures should be developed and practiced regularly to ensure that personnel are prepared to respond effectively in the event of an emergency. It is also worth noting that the definition of qualified person is critical in the context of electrical safety. A qualified person is someone who has the skills and knowledge related to the construction and operation of electrical equipment and installations and has received safety training to recognize and avoid the hazards involved. It's the employer's responsibility to ensure that personnel who work on electrical equipment are properly trained and qualified. Training should include instruction on the safe operation and maintenance of electrical equipment, the use of personal protective equipment, and the recognition and avoidance of electrical hazards. In conclusion, the separation of lower and medium voltage panel boards, the protection of exposed live parts, and the adequacy of panel boards as protection are all critical aspects of electrical safety that require careful consideration and adherence to applicable standards and regulations. By implementing appropriate safety measures and ensuring that personnel are properly trained and qualified, it's possible to minimize the risk of electrical shock, arc flash, and other electrical hazards. Always consult with a qualified electrical engineer or other expert to ensure that electrical systems are designed, installed, and maintained in a safe and compliant manner.